Hey everybody, this is Ethan. I wanted to give you a little bit more information about this idea of re-storytelling or storytelling in general. Gail and I ran across this concept about 2 years ago when we joined a thing called D groups at Park Chapel. And the traditional way, I should say, not typical way, the traditional way of studying the Bible is to open it up, read through a passage, ask questions about it, or maybe try to make a connection to application. And while that's good and it helps you increase your Bible knowledge, it doesn't really put it in a way that really syncs up with your mind in that experiences. The way we go through life as human beings, we tell stories to each other, and we don't read stories that we've written down or something like that. No, we just share it from our memory. We live out in our mind the story that we tell. And this coming Sunday, we're going to be talking about two specific stories about Jesus specifically. One is the story where his family members come to him in the middle of him doing ministry, and he goes, "Hey, who's my brother? Who's my mother? Who's my brother?" And then he tells about that. The second one is the calling of Levi, when Jesus calls Levi, and then Levi has this party, and the religious teachers come and say, "Hey, Jesus, why are you hanging out with those evil people, those sinners?" And Jesus said, "I didn't come for healthy people, I came for sick." And so just like that, being able to tell the story in our minds, and the cool thing about it, it actually engages more of your brain, not just reading, but living it out as well. So I'm going to be telling those two stories. I'm going to give you a couple of handholds as small group leaders coming up this Sunday. But the retelling part, which I think is really important to help these kids engage in it, one, it checks and see if they are actually listening, and two, it equips them to be able to share that story with somebody else. Oftentimes we're going through life and we run into like, well, who's Jesus about? Well, he was his friends were people who did the will of God, and his family were the people who did the will of God, and his friends were sinners. And so we're helping these kids verbalize stories from the Bible for themselves. And it's just a real encouragement to them to be able to do that and say, well, the Bible is not this thing that we can't approach or that we can't engage with. It helps them jump in. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight about what biblical storytelling is, or retelling. Now, actually pulling it off, you got to slow down a little bit, and it may be something as simple as, all right, so in our story today, who is it about? Well, it was about Jesus. Okay, then what happened? And then literally you have to wait until they step into it. Well, can anybody give me anything they remember from the story? Well, Jesus was doing this and Jesus was doing that. Sometimes you actually have to, the kids that are extra biblical or been at church a lot, sometimes you have to slow them and say, okay, hold on, slow down. Give me one piece so that we let everybody participate as well. And pulling everybody out, maybe using some people's names. These kids will really jump into it really quickly, I believe, because they're not just passers-by, receiving this information, but they actually get to participate in small group as well. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, smart remarks, send them my way. Thanks.